Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top five are correct, and then make predictions for next week's top five. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted that number one would be Snow White, number two would be the Alto Knights, number three would be Novocaine, number four would be Mickey 17, and number five would be Black Bag. And I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. I already checked the comments. Nobody else got their predictions right either. Similar to me, some people put too much faith in the Alto Knights doing very well, but also it seemed like nobody could really crack how the box office was going to reshuffle like it did. It actually did kind of surprise me what held over well and what didn't, and I'm not really sure what to take with it. It's not like we're going to have a drastic change from the dread I kind of gave people last weekend. But it's still interesting. Let's just dive into it. Number one was obviously Snow White, and here's the thing. I think I just need to say this up front. You know what I mean? I am dreading seeing how many fucking YouTube videos show up with the thumbnail like, go woke, go broke or whatever over this movie, because unfortunately this movie is blessed, cursed with the unfortunate price tag ranging somewhere between 240 million to 270 million. That's a lot. I feel like we've talked about it a little bit before. Somehow with these Disney remakes, they just pump so much into these. And for what? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like any other studio, if you let them make this, they'll probably be like maybe 100 to 150 million max. You know what I mean? We're not dumping everything into that. For whatever reason, this movie costs, this insane amount, and they're already up an uphill battle. I'm having flashbacks 2 years ago with The Little Mermaid, how it had a pretty solid opening, but the price tag was so large that when it finally ended its domestic and worldwide run, it was kind of like, well, they kind of just barely crossed over a doubling point, but is that even a success? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they're banking on a lot more. Usually, these very popular Disney remakes can get 1 billion, Lion King, Aladdin, you know what I mean? Jungle Book, I don't know if that hit 1 billion, but it made a lot of money. That was one of their most popular ones, right? Beauty and the Beast. And now we're basically kind of getting that again with Snow White, but in a worse way. Overall, it made 43 million for the domestic opening weekend, and then worldwide, only right now it is at 87 million. So yeah, if the budget was like what I was saying, 100 to 150, we'd probably be saying like, okay, there's still a chance here. Families, the families that are actually going to go see this, the families that aren't plugged into whatever, neckbeard, middle-aged white dude is saying online about this movie and Rachel Zegler, you know what I mean? They're going to go see this. They'll probably talk about it, and, kids will adore it, you know what I mean? And there's plenty of kids out there, to want to go see this. Plenty of families looking for something to see together before Minecraft, at least. And yeah, there is a potential for some staying power next week, because it is another slow weekend before Minecraft, at least. But right now, just based off of this price tag, though, it is just an uphill battle. If it was 100 to 150, like I was saying, we'd be having a completely different kind of conversation, a little more optimistic. This is a bit more like, it just seems like it's fucked completely, dude. I don't know. I really did not want to come in here, no matter how I feel about the movie. You know what I mean? I didn't want to come in here and like talk, badly or talk negatively about the box office for Snow White. You know what I mean? I really do want Rachel Zegler to succeed. I was hoping this could be another like good hit for her. Like, technically Hunger Games prequel was, a pretty modest run, but everything else is kind of, underperformed, flopped at the box office, you know what I mean? And I was hoping that this could be, a pretty easy win for her, and it just seems like no matter what happens, it's an uphill battle. I feel really bad, especially for Mark Webb. Let's just talk about, we're not going to go into all the stats for every remake. I'm just going to do some that are a little comparable here. So for opening weekends for Snow White domestically, it did make 22 million over both Pete's Dragon and Cruella. Cruella was a thing of like, it was coming out when they were still trying to reopen theaters, test the waters as far as like where we were at, and it opened up against A Quiet Place Part 2, which more people wanted to see right away. And then Pete's Dragon, that was a remake of one of Disney's more like underseen like movies, one of their underseen not animated films, but animated dragon in a live action world kind of musical that they made not a musical, you know what I mean? So it was like, okay, so this doing a little better than those two is a bit like, well, it should, but it is 24 million below the opening weekend of Cinderella. That's back in 2015, dude. 2 million below Dumbo. That's pretty damning, because that one's fucking terrible. 26 million below First Maleficent. 52 million below most recently Little Mermaid. Like I was saying, it's a little worse in the case of comparing, what happened with Little Mermaid to this. Like at least that one, I think it ended up close to 600 million worldwide or a little over 500 million, you know what I mean? And this one, I don't know. I genuinely don't know, and I do feel bad. It needs 33 million until it outgrosses Peach Dragon as far as the remakes go, and that's where its starting point is. For Mark Webb, it did outgross Only Living Boy in New York by 43 million, Gifted by 19 million, and 500 Days of Summer by 11 million. It is sitting behind The Amazing Spider-Man 2 by 160 million dollars worldwide. Like I said, it's sitting at 87 million for the Disney remakes and needs 50 million to get to Peach Dragon, same movie. And then for Mark Webb, once again, it outgrossed the same movies: 85 million over Only Living Boy in New York, 53 million over 500 Days of Summer, and 51 million over Gifted. Big number, 622 million away from Amazing Spider-Man 2, though. So, man, I wrote all this stuff down, and there is a part of me that is like, is it even worth coming back to check on these? You know what I mean? Like, unless it just has these crazy holds, even when Minecraft comes out, even after, you know what I mean? It's like, man, I just feel like I'm gonna be a broken record. It's that conflicting thing of like, I have not been a fan of what Disney has been doing with the majority of their live action remakes. I feel like they go about them the wrong way completely. But then, so I have that side of me that's like, okay, good. Some people are finally showing with their wallets that they don't want to see these as much, or you shouldn't pump them with so much money. On the other side, it's like, it's definitely not the worst thing that they've ever done, and yeah, there is a part of me that wants to see some success for Rachel Zegler. Big fan of hers, and just based off of all the controversy surrounding this movie, that was mostly like just cooked up in a exaggeratory sense, once again by neckbeards online. You know what I mean? 50-year-old dudes. You know what I mean? Oh man, it sucks. It's a bummer. Let's just move along to number 2, which was Black Bag. Now, we talked about last weekend. It bumped up, obviously. It's at number 2 right now. We talked about how it cost 50 million, and they're still, not close to doubling that. But the fact that it held over strong enough where it outpaced these other movies and got to a higher placement in the top 5 is actually kind of crazy. That's kind of the only thing that was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I was surprised. But then we look at the numbers, it only made 4.4 million. That does add to a domestic total of 14 million. Now worldwide it is sitting at 24. So they're inching a lot closer than where they were as far as doubling this budget. Still no, I mean, in order to double this, it needs 100 million. So it's like, I don't think that's going to happen unless this thing is in theaters year round and people keep talking about it and they're like, oh, okay, maybe I will go see it this weekend, and it gains stuff like that. But the days of movies being in a theater for that long, not even like a whole 3 months, that's like long gone. Right? Anyways, so that's the only thing that was surprising, that this held over and not the other movie that was number 1 last weekend. Is it number 3? No, it's Captain America Brave New World, making 4.1 million, adding to a domestic total of 192 million. And worldwide it crossed over the 400 million point. So yeah, it's looking like they're about to gain maybe just as much as what Ant-Man 3 did. We were talking about the Ant-Man comparison a little bit in some of these videos, and I mean, shit. That's what's happening here. And you might be wondering, did it outgross any of the other MCU films that it needs to? No. For domestic numbers, it is still behind Thor: The Dark World, now by 14 million. For worldwide, it is 1 million shy of Eternals. That's it. It didn't outgross anything, but at least it got to 400 million worldwide. Womp womp. Disney, once again. Number 4 is Mickey 17, making 3.9 million. The prediction that I got right outside of Snow White. Crazy that it was this one. Making 40 million now in its overall domestic total for Bong Joon-ho. It is 13 million away from outgrossing Parasite. Worldwide, it actually, I feel like last weekend it was a lot lower. It had a bit of a bump. It is now sitting at 110 million worldwide. Now, it is still nowhere close to doubling this initial production budget, but crossing over that initial point of 118 million, yeah, close enough. It's still, I think they've already reported that Warner's is still going to be losing money on this thing, but it had a little bit of a bump up, and I just wanted to acknowledge that is pretty impressive to me. It worldwide was able to outgross Snowpiercer for Bong Joon-ho by 28 million, and The Host not that one, the other one, by 18 million. It's now sitting behind Parasite by 143. So, yeah, at least enough of a boost to get by those two movies right here. It was behind them, and now it's, at least a significant, like 30 something boost. I forgot what the other number was, and I'm not going to check. Fuck you. But that was pretty cool to see, at least, even though, once again, similar to Black Bag, it's still not really in the best shape, it would seem. But hey, at least Bong Joon-ho got John Carpenter to commit to scoring his horror film, apparently. Did you guys see that picture? That's fun. And maybe it's true, I don't know. Number 5 was Novocaine. It got number 1 last weekend, and it was like, okay, even though it's in a low numbers, you know what I mean? Like, it's an original film that got to number 1, maybe with some solid word of mouth it can hold over. No. Black Bag held over better, Mickey 17 held over better, and now Novocaine is at number 5. Crazy kind of drop off there. It made 3.7 million, adding to a domestic total of 15 million. Worldwide, it's only squeaked up to 21 million, and on that 18 million initial production budget, look, it's outgrossed Love Hurts, the Ke Huy Quan movie that came out a couple weeks ago, that had the same budget but flopped overall. Even though technically they have made more, they still need 36 million for our show standards to be considered a success, and they're not quite there, and the drop off definitely isn't helping. You know what I mean? Kind of crazy. Yeah, like, man, the one thing from last weekend where we were kind of like, well, this is the best scenario for as far as like these numbers that we have here. Even this one is not holding over well. Interesting how that works. But maybe it's fine. I don't know. Maybe it's such a low enough budget that they're in the clear. Who fucking knows? Does anyone know anything? I don't know. Number 6 is Alto Nights. Once again, just want to go back to my point of, yeah, put too much stock in this one doing well. There was that part of me that was like, maybe it doesn't get to number 2, but I was still like, it has to get into number 5 at least, right? No, it made 3.1 million. I guess, yeah, the marketing wasn't great on this thing anyways. Like, I saw like the trailer maybe twice in theaters. I don't know how many ads there were on TV. Like, I knew it was coming out, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody. And I feel like Robert De Niro's audience in general is like these people that aren't online as much. You know what I mean? Worldwide, it's only bumped up to 5.06. Not a great worldwide debut, and this is on a budget of 45 million. So, yeah, a really bad spot for this one. Just wow, the fact that Warner's, as far as like tax write-offs go, movies getting shelved, whatever, the fact that this one squeaked out but they still didn't market it, you know what I mean? Like, crazy. Warner's loss after loss, Disney loss after loss. What the hell's going on? Number 7 is The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Now, there is a little bit of interest here. Let's talk about it. It made 1.8 million this weekend. That adds to a domestic total of 6.4. Worldwide, bumped up to 8.7. Still not close to the initial production budget of 15 million, and for our show standards, the doubling point being 30, nowhere close to that. And I was talking about last weekend, in combination of things bringing me down about the box office, theater attendance, the state of the industry, theater standards, promotion for movies, blah, 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 everything that we've said before. Everything is wrong. I was like, one of the things I said was, man, we are never going to see Coyote v. Acme. And then a couple days later, there was like a news report saying like, this just in, Ketchup Entertainment, which distributed this movie, might be nearing a deal to buy it for 50 mil or something like that. And I was like, what? Okay. Because I feel like the Warner Bros. Asking price initially when they were talking about this was like way higher. But it seemed maybe they've settled on 50 and Ketchup is the only one willing to release these movies, I guess. Whatever gets that movie out in theaters, right? I hope for like maybe an official confirmation at some point. But okay, so maybe the doom and gloom I was saying wasn't entirely, completely, true. Like, we might still be seeing the movie, or we won't. This could all crumble in days. Who fucking knows? Number 8 is The Monkey, making 1.54 million, adding to a domestic total of 37 million. So domestically for Oz Perkins, it's still behind Longlegs by 37 million, and for Neon, it is behind Parasite by 16. So same placement, top 3 for Neon there. Worldwide, it did bump up to 60 million, so they've made 6 times this 10 to 11 million initial production budget now. Good stuff. Worldwide, it's behind Longlegs by 65 million. And then for Neon, it outgrossed Anora and I, Tonya by 7 million. and now you're like, oh, so it's now the top three highest grossing neon film behind Parasite and what else? Number two, Long Legs, baby. It needs 65 million now to get to Long Legs for Neon and for Oz Perkins, which is just pretty cool. You know, it's cool that Oz Perkins is ruling Neon at the moment, it would seem. And that's just really cool. Like we were talking about last week, and there's these like shreds of good news, you know, and it's a bit more this weekend, but it's gray areas. There's gray areas all around. Number 9 is Dog Man, making 1.50 million, adding to a domestic total of 95 million. So it's 2 million away from the bad guys for DreamWorks. It's probably going to get there. Like we were saying, that'd be pretty cool because that was a recent kind of underdog hit for DreamWorks. It'd be cool if Dog Man did that as well. Worldwide, it is sitting at 128 million. So it did finally outgross Captain Underpants, the other Dave Pilkey adaptation from DreamWorks, by 2 million, and it needs 18 million now until it gets to Boss Baby 2 Family Business. So that's cool. You know what I mean? It tripled its 40 mil initial production budget, and it's outgrossed Captain Underpants, I think, in both places now, domestically and worldwide. It's about to get past the bad guys domestically, and that's cool. That's just pretty cool, and I don't really have much more to add. So let's just close out the video with number 10, The Last Supper, making 1.3 million, adding to a domestic total of 5.3. Still no updated budget anywhere, but I haven't seen any trailers for this. I'm gonna assume it's about the same price as an episode of The Chosen. Well, actually, you know what? I kind of meant that derogatory, but I actually don't know how much money they pump into that show. It's probably a lot. Who fucking... Either way, maybe they're screwed. Or maybe they're not. I don't know. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I'm going with Snow White. I think, you know, a bit of a dry weekend as far as, like, new family films before Minecraft, so I think this is a last chance for Snow White to, you know, gain some momentum. Maybe this is it. Number 2, I think will be A Working Man, just based off of, you know, it's a new action film, Jason Statham, you know, people do like him. And also The Beekeeper did pretty well last year, so maybe there's like a renewed interest in like, you know, because I think they've even sent the trailer from the director of The Beekeeper, David Ayer, you know what I mean? So maybe. Number 3, I think will be Death of a Unicorn. And then number 4, I think will be The Woman in the Yard. I'm only betting this because I could see it going the other way, but I think I want to have faith in A24, number 1. And then number 2, I think Death of a Unicorn has some people's attention where like it's a more interesting kind of comic thing for a horror slasher, and The Woman in the Yard kind of like, it looks like a, you know, creepy horror film, but maybe a little more on the been there done that side, especially because there's no word of mouth for that one yet, so it could go either way right now. Death of a Unicorn, as far as from what I've seen so far online, it seems to have some kind of positive buzz to it, so I think that's my reasoning for those predictions. And then number 5, I think, will be Black Bag. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.